cartels. They went from hauling 18-wheelers and pickup truck loads of people one after another, day in, day out, all night long, to in a week's time, they can't get enough people across this river to put in one single truck. That's a hell of a difference.
Right, guys, we are in Hidalgo County right now, right on the U.S.-Mexico border. I think are we in Mexico right now?
No, we're about a quarter mile from it.
All right, I'm in the car here with Head Honcho Sheriff Roy Boyd from Goliad County. Say hey, Roy.
How you doing?
And we're going to drive along the border today, and we're going to look at a lot of stuff that's been going on down here for years, and the problems that the previous administration was allowing to happen, and talk about how things have changed now that we have an administration in place that actually is trying to make a change in the way that we're doing things down here at the border, and keep our country safe and secure once again. We're going to talk about all that stuff today as we drive along the border here from Hidalgo County over to Roma. What county is that?
It's going to be over Starr County.
Starr County.
Take you over there. If you don't behave, I'll drop you off in Mexico.
And I might not come back if I don't behave. And maybe, Roy, do you think there's a chance we'll see some bad guys maybe driving around out here?
You probably won't see them here, but we get over to Roma, there's always the opportunity to see people on the other side of the river who are preparing to smuggle people across. But thanks to the efforts of Border Patrol under the Trump administration and their new Border Patrol chief, Mike Banks, they're having an extremely difficult time getting loads of illegals across the river at this point in time. So the country's a lot more secure than it was a short time ago, and we hope they can keep it that way. So make it a lot safer for everybody in the United States of America.
That's right. We got our country back, we got our borders back, and they're doing their job. So we're going to drive around and talk about all that stuff here this afternoon along the border, and it's going to be really interesting, and we're going to get the truth about what's going on. So what do you think's going to happen? How many people came? If you watch the news or you try to find research, there's no easy way to figure out how many people came in under Biden's. You'll see 10 million, you'll see 40 million. How many do you think came in before they shut the gates?
Talking with some of the people that were high up in Border Patrol, the best estimate is somewhere between 40 and 50 million made it
40
across.
and 50 million made it in.
Border Patrol in 2021 alone advised me that they estimated between 18 and like 25 million came in, but they weren't sure. But the problem was the administration took away most of the tools that Border Patrol used to count the gotaways.
Right.
They also restricted Border Patrol's ability to be out in the field and intercept people. And so you're right, it's extremely difficult to tell, but the numbers are going to be considerably more than what was ever put out in the public. When they talk about 1 million, 2 million, that's nothing. We had one smuggling organization that was a contractor for Cartel. And that one smuggling organization, the best guess of the Department of Homeland Security was bringing 100,000 illegal aliens a year through our county before we intercepted them and dismantled the organization.
So 40 million, that's like 15% of our total population. In 4 years, you think maybe we grew 15%?
I wouldn't doubt it.
In illegal, just non-citizens added to the population.
Even though we're 3 hours north of the border, we have seen a drastic change in the demographic in our communities.
Up in Goliad County.
All throughout the region.
Right.
Goliad, not as much for the simple fact that we're a very rural, small town. But you see it in the other places, towns that are 10,000 in population and up. You see a lot of people that don't speak English. And that was not the case before the Biden administration. Because traditionally, Hispanic families in South Texas wouldn't even allow their children to learn Spanish growing up because they wanted them to be American. And so that has changed. Now you hear that Spanish everywhere you go. You see that demographic shift. The school districts are telling you that they're 80% Hispanic, even though the census will tell you that your population in your community is 40% Hispanic. The numbers don't add up. There's a lot more, and you can visibly see that change in the communities throughout South Texas. That's for sure.
So what happens one day if these 40 million people don't get their way? They don't like the way they're being treated, and as a group decide to rise up. I mean, is that a possibility? Is that a worry?
Well, that's something that's really good to look at, because what we've done is we've imported these people and we put them into a Peon class. And unlike how the Democrat Party or a lot of politicians look at people, everybody's made in the image of God, and nobody has the right to enslave anybody. When we bring these people into our country and we enslave them, at some point they're going to have the right to stand up and demand to enjoy the same freedoms we have. And all it's going to take is the right charismatic leader at the right time, the right place. And if there is something that rises up, then it's going to fundamentally change the way that the United States of America is structured. And that's not going to be something that's going to be pleasant for the people that have been citizens here for years. And that's a historical thing. You've seen that in other countries. Those kind of things never go peacefully, and they never have a tendency to follow the natural path of the country's trajectory. And so, but these people shouldn't be here in indentured servitude. The most humane thing we can do is gather them up and send them back to their countries, because regardless of what the left wants to say, there is no compassion in slavery. And if you leave them here, they are enslaved. The only way to free these people is to send them home, because at that point they are no longer indebted for their time in the United States.
So of the 40 million, how many do you think are going to justifiably, Homan and Trump and everybody, they say that they're going to go after the criminals first and get the worst ones out, and then maybe start, realistically though, how many of those are never going to ever get sent home?
You're always going to have some that blend into the system and never wind up leaving. But if they do it right and they go through in a systematic approach, I believe that we could actually get the vast majority of these people out of the country. Some of them voluntarily, some of them against their will. But if you enact a PR campaign that educates these people that are in the country illegally,
they'll self-deport,
that if they leave, then when they go to reapply for entry, by self-deporting, you get some sort of benefit, like a prioritization. We'll forget that you came in illegally, and maybe we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. It can be as simple as, if you self-deport, if you report and self-deport, you're barred from re-entry in the United States for the next 5 years. If you have to be deported against your will, you're permanently barred from entry into the United States of America. And so I know that's being looked at. There are certain legal hurdles that have to be overcome. Had a conversation about that exact thing in Washington, D.C. last week. So I know it's being looked at, but that's something that the powers that be are going to have to figure out.
So we don't know. The answer is we just don't know right now. It's way too early to try to guess how many of the 30, 40 million are going to be. Exactly, because the logistical issues of taking over office and getting rid of those people that are not on the Trump team and replacing them with employees who are actually going to fulfill the mandates that Trump was given by the public, it's going to take time. I think you're going to see things moving at a very fast pace. I mean, they're already moving at a fast pace. Look what Border Patrol is done in a month down here. It's a whole different world down here than it was. And that's something that is phenomenal, and it's because of their leadership. It's because of the direction they've been given. It's because the men and women of Border Patrol have always wanted to fulfill their duty and not do what the Biden administration was forcing them to do. So they turned on a dime and got the mission done in short order. Oh, go back.
I was say, you want to walk out?
Yeah.
You want to walk out and check out the, just be able to see the river down there?
All right. We're going down. Check out the Rio Grande. I gotta show people your boots. Man, looking sharp there. So other side of that's Mexico.
That's correct.
And no fence, so they can probably attempt to kind of cross there if they want, I guess, but there's people watching all the time.
Yeah, and they do. They cross over. But right now, Border Patrol has everything pretty locked down, so they're not able to get people across like they could a month or two ago. The cartels are having a difficult time getting those folks to this side of the river, which is a good thing for us and a bad thing for them. You know, to hell with them. They've been making money off our backs all this time. It's time for them to have a little bit of a budget cut themselves, so to speak.
Yeah.
So Trump's put the Cuajitas on them, and it's hurting the cartels. They'll figure out a way to get it done, but it will not be near to the extent that they were just a year ago.
So like a year ago, even a few months ago, if we were standing here, how many people you think would be flying through here on a daily basis in this spot?
You know, in this stretch of river, you might have 1,000+ people a day coming across.
Right around here. And how many are now today, yesterday-ish?
Well, and I'll go back to what you and I talked about last night. We are actually down here because there's a smuggling organization trying to put together a load of about 40 people to take north. In the last week, they have not been able to get enough people across the river to make a load, to make it worth their trouble, to make the journey to Houston.
It's very quiet out here. Like you wouldn't think that there's so much has gone on here in the last 4 years. You know what I mean? Like it just feels so dead.
But if you walk through the woods, you'll see all the trash. I will tell you that during this last year, the Biden administration had the federal government down here cleaning up trash to get rid of a lot of the evidence because they did not want the media filming it or anybody coming down and seeing it. So they were digging holes and burying the debris where they could in order to get it out of the sight of people so they wouldn't see the totality of what's going on.
Yeah, they're covering up their own tracks. God. Getting the windows washed. So where are we right now, Roy?
Roma, Texas.
Roma?
We're across the river from Miguel Alemán, one of the cities that the cartels battle over on a regular basis.
Is this a major area that a lot of people are coming across the border and just another crossing spot?
Over the last 4 years, this was a major epicenter for smuggling of people across the river, getting them into Texas illegally.
Right here, coming in right into Roma.
Yep, right into Roma.
And they were coming in across the river down here?
Sure were. You could go down at night and you could watch them cross hundreds at a time.
This was how long ago was that?
21 and 22.
During the height of the Biden?
We come down here and we're watching people as late as last November. You could come down and watch the cartel walk down with their guns and inflate their rafts and get ready to bring people over in the darkness.
3 months ago, that was all going on.
Yep, no mas.
So, but they knew that everybody was watching them. Why would they do it right here in the plain view of like some little town? You know, like why not do that 6 miles outside of town?
Because nothing was being done to them.
Yeah, they didn't have any incentive to even try to elude anybody.
Yeah. They were making money and getting away with it.
So what is that city called over there?
Miguel Alemán.
Miguel Alemán. And there's a sort of, that's their version of the fence, that white, is that? Is that our fence or their fence?
That's theirs. That water down there is the Rio Grande.
Yeah.
So everything across there is Mexico.
Okay. And there's no wall on this side, I guess.
Not right here.
No. So I didn't really ask about fentanyl. How much of the problem of the smuggling, are they getting it over here on the backs of immigrants that are coming over? Or are they doing the traditional way in the trucks, sneaking it across on the bridges?
All the above.
Yeah?
All the above. They bring it in however they can. You'll have the illegal aliens with the backpacks loaded up coming across. You'll also have it converted and dissolved into liquid and put into the septic tanks of RVs and campers and brought over. They'll hide it any way they can. They're constantly changing their methodology in order to stay ahead of the detection capabilities of U.S. Border and Customs. And so they're always adapting and always getting it through however they can. Sometimes they bring it in by boat out of the Gulf of Mexico. Sometimes it comes through on trains. So it's coming through from all directions.
Drones?
Yeah, they're bringing stuff over drones. You have drugs being delivered by drones across the river on
Like
a daily
they're
basis.
literally just flying over, dropping, and someone's on this side to grab it.
Yes. They deliver it to specific houses.
Oh, they'll just drop it and they know exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And so are there times that they see drones flying over and they can see there's something attached, like?
U.S. Border Patrol tracks the drone flights that take place along the border, and they watch for the incursions. Under the Biden administration, there was no effort made to intercept or take down any of those drones, but I bet that's changing real soon.
How many, we don't know who's come in that might have ulterior motives. That's pretty scary.
Yeah, we've known for a very long time that the Mexican cartels work hand in hand with international terrorist organizations. They actually trained with Al-Qaeda many years ago. They've trained with many of the enemies of the United States of America, and they help move those people into this country. China takes people into Mexico for the cartels to smuggle into the United States. North Korea does the same thing. You have other countries like Russia and them that are utilizing the cartels' network and capability to get their people and products into the U.S. And so you're absolutely right. There's no telling how many terrorists have been imported into the U.S. that we don't know about, especially during the last 4 years when the border was wide open. Because I will tell you, it was like a floodgate came open. We were drowning in the work that we had fighting the cartels and their contractors during the Biden administration years.
Mm-hmm. And this is a different part of Texas than we were at earlier, about an hour away. But again, to reemphasize, before the border was shut, before the current administration took over, we could be standing here and there would literally be hundreds of people a day that would be crossing the river down there. Is that a fair assumption?
Oh, that's correct. And if you would go upriver about a mile, you could go down there at night and watch the cartel load people into rafts and bring them across, hundreds at a time. And they were just welcomed into the country, brought up to the top of the hill, and there was no deterrent whatsoever. And there were thousands and thousands of wristbands littered around on the riverbank as the cartel kept track of who had paid to come across and which organization had received the payment.
And then they cut their wristbands and now they're in the...
They cut their wristbands, they throw their IDs on the ground, they'd even drop their Mexican pesos, and then they would go into the waiting arms of Border Patrol agents who were forced to handle them at that point in time.
And then they'd be processed, and then I hear sent to whatever city they wanted to go to, given phones, debit cards,
Yep.
money,
Yep.
shoes, clothes, stuff.
You're absolutely right. Some people were deported, but the vast majority were let loose right into the country.
And then they were also given, so $1,500 a month, I hear a lot of them were getting in welfare pay. I don't know how they were, just debit cash cards.
They had a debit card that they would receive from the government, and that card would be loaded. And then once they got to their destination, yeah, some of them would get additional funding while they were there.
Any idea how much a month some of these people were getting?
I don't know, because that took place far north from here.
Just somewhere, and it depended on what city you went to and whatever agency decided to give you.
Yeah.
But in some cases, it was more than the Social Security benefits that were given to people that had worked for 50 years that were collecting $800-900 a month.
Yeah.
We were giving immigrants more than that.
Well, they've been putting them up in luxury hotels in New York for quite some time.
And meanwhile, we have places like North Carolina and Los Angeles, and where we've had disasters around the country that they say, we don't have any money, we can't help you.
That's the difference. Under Biden, it was America last, and now it's America first.
Is there like something that you guys are worried about that like maybe one day, if they figure this out, we're in trouble?
Well, they're always going to change, and we're always going to change.
Yeah.
And we're fully aware. You know, in 2019, when I was up on the Canadian border, talking to Border Patrol agents up there, there's about 15 miles of swamp up in New Hampshire, Vermont, that border, you know, right there with Canada and the United States. And even in 2019, the cartel had coyotes up there, which is what we call a scout who brings illegals through into the country. And they were guiding illegal aliens who were being flown from Mexico to Canada, and then were being brought in on foot through trails through the swamp in the middle of the night.
So the Canadian border, when Trump said you need to secure that border, a lot of people said they're not coming in there. That's just that is a huge.
They're coming in there in large numbers, and there's a lot of drugs coming in there as well. There's a big problem in certain areas of the border between U.S. and Canada.
Yeah.
It has to be addressed. But when you think of the border, everybody thinks of the southwest border with Mexico. But you have to understand, New Generation Jalisco Cartel is in something like 50 different countries at this point in time. They're not just in Mexico. All the cartels have an international presence that's worldwide at this point in time, because there's a worldwide market. But America is always going to be the largest market for anything, because we are the most successful and robust country there is in the world. And so they're always trying to get more and more money out of us. So they're always going to be bringing their product in and extracting our money out. And they're going to continue to do that no matter what we do. They're going to continue to make that a successful endeavor. But it's our job to anticipate that. And what you were asking about with regards to, you know, are we worried about them changing? We know they're going to change. We're anticipating those changes. Some of them are complex and are going to be difficult to deal with. But we're already seeing that if we do this, they will probably do either this, this, or this. So we need to already have a plan to mitigate this, this, and this. Whether that's ports of entry, whether that's air, whether that's maritime. We have to look at everything, whether it's tunneling. It doesn't matter. Even bringing people over with drones. We look at all those possibilities. We tabletop what's going on.
Do you think that's going to... Drones?
Oh yeah, I guarantee you. They're flying loads of dope over with drones every day.
And dropping it on this side?
Yes, sir.
So how many pounds does a current basic drone, can it carry?
That is a question I don't have an answer to.
But one day they could be like literally two people strapped to the drone. They just drop them off and go back and drop them off in the middle of the desert.
Technology is moving exponentially.
Yeah, man.
It's going to get there. You know, it is going to get there.
I can't even believe that. That'll be a sight when people are, you see them flying by and you're like, oh, like Mary Poppins coming in.
Without an umbrella.
Yeah.
Yeah, this secondary fence closest to us has been placed here since the Trump administration came in.
Okay, so before, a month ago, this fence was not here.
No, the bottom part on the outside, the concertina wire was there, but not the razor wire on the top, and not this tall panel fence.
And this is basically just trying to funnel them into a different, because I mean, that's
what a wall does. A wall doesn't prevent.
They know how to.
Yeah, a wall doesn't prevent people from coming across. What it does is it makes difficult areas for people to come across, which then creates choke points, so that you have a higher likelihood of apprehending people in those choke points, and so the wall acts as a force multiplier. we're setting off all kinds of sensors.
Are we?
Oh yeah.
Do they know, like, oh, it's just Roy?
Usually,
like
yeah, usually they'll zoom in with their camera, or they've got a drone, and sometimes they'll send somebody down, hey, go check that out, make sure.
Yeah, like I don't see any sign that we're being watched, clearly.
Nah, but there are sensors and stuff down here.
Okay.
And even throughout the entire Biden administration, Border Patrol wanted to do their job, and they tried to do their job, but the administration kept putting obstacles in their way. And so they continue to put out sensors and do the things that they knew that they needed to do to, create a deterrence or to capture people. But the administration kept going around them and forcing them to release people or reassigning them to other duties to prevent them from apprehending people. So as the Border Patrol would say, they became the last leg of the logistical journey for the cartel's human cargo.
And there were a lot of Border Patrol that were working with the cartel or taking bribes or being told, let them lift the wire, is that what you call it?
Yeah, but you're going to have that in any large organization. It doesn't matter whether it's federal, state, or even local.
Private,
when you have a large organization, you're always going to have a certain percentage of the people in that organization who are not in line with the goals of the organization and are willing to take that kind of kickback or that opportunity and do things that are against the interest of the organization. You see these ribbons that are on the branches here?
Yeah.
You got different colors. And so these have been here for a while, but usually what these would signify, they may send people across the river and tell them, follow the blue banner or the green banner or the yellow or the pink banner. And they would flag trails and then send their coyotes or the illegals across, and they would follow these things, and so they knew which way to go. You go out to Nogales and you go out into no man's land, and you'll see where they'll put duct tape on the trees. And if you look and step back out in that open country, you can see that line of duct tape that goes through that no man's land, and that's there for them to follow. Because you get out in certain areas, even in Arizona, and the border wall comes to an end, it's a 3-strand barbed wire fence. And so that's where they'll go through. And it's so remote out there, that's how they'll flag the trails. Just follow the duct tape. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They got their own little,
low-tech systems.
Yeah, man.
Because what people don't realize is they take the phones from the illegals when they come so that they can't call anybody.
When they get over?
The cartel takes them.
Takes them when they get...
The coyotes will take the phones from the illegals before they bring them to this side of the river.
Okay.
So that they can't be filming them. They can't be geolocated. They can't make calls. They can't call for help if they get hurt. They don't want them to do that.
No, they want them to be at their behest of help. So, take away their means of helping themselves.
Yeah.
So they have to rely on them.
And they don't want to get caught.
Yeah.
So, because to them, the people aren't people, they're just product.
A lot of people don't realize the indentured servitude part of things, right? That a lot of these people come over here and they are basically indentured slavery, basically. They're just slaves to the cartel. And how does that work? What's going on with all that?
So that's part of the greatest misunderstanding about this. Most people think that this is an immigration issue that has gone on down here, but it's not. It's actually slave trade. So the people that are being brought across, when they get here, they're indebted to the cartels. And so it doesn't matter whether an NGO transports them to the interior of the United States of America or whether they have to make their own way using a coyote or some other means. What happens is when they reach their final destination, they still have to pay off their debt to the cartel. And as a result, on average, it takes 8 to 13 years to buy your freedom. So we have tens of millions of people that are in slavery or indentured servitude right here in the United States. And so sometimes those people get sold from one master to the next. But the thing about it is they always have to pay off that debt. Because if they don't pay that debt off, then somebody is going to have to pay. And so the cartels in Mexico run a very robust intelligence network And as a result, if they don't pay that debt off and they can't be found, then somebody else in their family is going to have to pay that debt off. Whether their sister's put into prostitution, their brother becomes a drug mule, that debt will be paid off by somebody at some point in time. And so that's what this really has been. The administration took and pushed tens of millions of slaves into the United States of America and has created a peon class that should not be here. Because if you're going to come here, you should come here legally, and you should be afforded the opportunity to reap all the benefits that America has to offer.
What are we doing right now? What is this here?
So we're underneath one of the international bridges under Highway 396. This is the same bridge that the NGOs and Border Patrol had set up under, and we're processing and releasing people into the country. But as you can see, they've still had problems with people coming across. Since the Trump administration came in, they've come and taken additional measures and put up this taller fence with the razor wire across the top. So what you have is you've got razor wire along the bottom, and then you also have it running across the top of that high fence that has been brought here.
What percentage of people are actually like coming over here for a better life, that are not criminals, that are just not connected to the cartel, that aren't indebted, that are just family people that just want out of Guatemala, El Salvador, Mexico? They want the American dream. They want to come over here and work hard.
You don't cross this border without the cartel's permission. If you do, you'll be tortured or killed, one of the two.
Really?
Yes. And we've seen that firsthand, where we have intercepted people during our operations that have scars from being tortured as a result of them trying to enter into the state of Texas without paying the cartels. And so when you cross this border, the cartel is going to be involved in some way. I'm not saying there's nobody that ever makes it across, but it's pretty much impossible unless you're in an extremely remote location. But even in those places, the cartel has people, and they have an intelligence network on both sides of the river. And so if you come across, it doesn't matter why you want to come here, you're going to have to deal with the cartels because they control this border. The border has never been unsecure. It's just not been secured by the United States of America. It has been secured by the cartels because years ago, the American government relinquished the control of this territory to the cartels, and they've maintained it ever since until now, when Border Patrol has put their foot down and is moving forward and making sure that the border is once again secure.
So back in the day, I mean, as a kid, I remember like in the 80s and 90s, you know, there were people that were coming over, and that was, the cartel was not involved at that, but those were just families that was a different time. When did the cartel become so heavily involved in basically just organizing everybody that's coming across the border? Like 10 years ago, 25?
Yeah, you probably saw that starting about 15, 20 years ago. They really began to take control of that aspect, because historically the cartels were involved initially in moving drugs for the Colombians, cocaine for the Colombians, moving their own marijuana. Eventually they overtook the Colombians because they outsmarted them in their marketing and how they laid out their business model. And for a long time, they predominantly dealt with the illicit drugs. But as time moved on, these people are extremely intelligent. They're not what people think they are. It's not a bunch of dumb people across that river conducting business. It's extremely intelligent people who have a lot of business savvy, but no moral compass and no care for human life. And so they have moved into everything that you can think of. They control illegal immigration. They control a lot of produce that comes across from Mexico. They control a lot of other products that would otherwise be legitimate. They've taken over many of the trucking companies on both sides of the river. That was one of the things that happened as a result of NAFTA. When NAFTA came in under I believe it was Bill Clinton, when that took place, the cartel then came in and started threatening the local mom and pop trucking companies throughout the Rio Grande Valley, telling them, you'll either work for us, sell out to us, or we'll burn your stuff down. And so many of the small trucking companies we have down here are affiliated with the cartels at one level or another. So they have infiltrated pretty much all aspects of the economy in deep South Texas. When I was working cartel cases with Department of Homeland Security 7-8 years ago, HSI estimated that somewhere in the vicinity of, say, 70% of the economy, the entire economy in the Rio Grande Valley, was in some way connected to cartel activity out of Mexico.
That's so human smuggling and getting people over the border. Is that human smuggling? What do you call that?
That's smuggling.
Trafficking. It's not trafficking. It's a different thing.
Yeah.
How much of their revenue is now human smuggling than it used to be drugs and whatever else? I mean, is it like a majority of their income now?
The best estimate, and that's all that the government really can do, is that they were making about $13 billion a year, that thanks to the Biden administration, just in the human smuggling side of their operation. And it actually generated more revenue than the drugs, which traditionally has been their primary revenue source.
And that's like $2,000, $3,000 at a time of that per person. Like, what does a person pay to get over the border usually? I hear it's between $2,000 and $8,000.
Well, it depends on who you are and where you're from. Oh. If you're from somewhere down in Mexico, you may pay $3,000, $4,000 to get across the border, and then once you get to Houston, then you owe them another $10,000. Is usually how it works. But if you're from somewhere that's a special interest country, let's say you're from the Middle East, or you're from Russia, or you're from China, then that price goes up considerably, and is usually somewhere in the neighborhood of $10,000+.
So what's the cartel going to do now that a big chunk of their revenue is going to be gone? Because are they going to be just going back to drugs? Are they going to have to come up with a new income stream? What are they going to do?
The cartel is extremely adaptable.
Yeah.
They will adapt their business model to continue to control northern Mexico and to continue to profit off of whatever they need to profit off of. They're also wise and they're patient, and they know that if they wait long enough, eventually there'll be another president that comes in that is not going to enforce the law as stringently as Donald Trump has, and then this will be wide open again, because it's human nature. We have a tendency to believe that if we're safe right now, then all is good. We forget that we must continue to press forward and take measures in order to ensure that safety into the future.
So we were talking earlier, these NGOs, they were working with the Biden administration to bring as many people into the country as they could?
That's correct. The NGOs were getting paid so much money per day for each illegal alien that they processed, they transported, and they housed. I know that down here, the Biden administration was paying $1,500 a day to NGOs to house illegal aliens in hotel rooms. But the problem that you'll see is not only were they taking your tax dollars, paying the NGOs to house those people, the government was also providing gift cards to the illegals, which the NGOs would then charge the illegals for the room that the taxpayers had already paid for. So it was a huge scam. And so the NGOs were making hundreds of millions of dollars a year off of this.
An NGO, for people that don't know, it's a non-government organization. It's sort of a non-profit, but not technically a non-profit, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of them are now out of business, right? Now that our boys...
There's one of the bends of the river, it swings in close right here.
That's the Rio Grande right there?
Yeah.
Is it possible that if we sat here all day, we'd see some people going across that?
You know, if you'd have come down here a year ago, there were places where they'd be coming across. Thanks to the Biden administration, this bridge that you see up ahead of us, a lot of them were just coming across the checkpoint, and the Biden administration was welcoming them into the country. But that's all come to an end now that Trump's in office. But they would bring them, put them underneath the bridge, and they would process them. Any of them that came across that were apprehended, instead of being deported, a lot of them were being brought underneath the bridge, being processed by the NGOs and Border Patrol, and then they were shipping them out on buses, one after another, all day long, on this very road that we're on. And the reason they would move them down here and drive them on this dike road is because it was out of view of the public. And so they could ship them out from the location underneath the bridge and get them to another location farther away where they wouldn't be seen.
And this was going on for years.
For 4 years.
And what do you think the reason that the Biden administration was justifying bringing in so many illegals into the country?
Well, number one, they were lying about what they were doing and the number that was coming across. But number two, it's my opinion that they were attempting to fundamentally change the United States of America. So what many people don't realize is that, you know, our republic is based off of the principle that all authority comes from God. God provides it to the people, and the people temporarily grant authority to the government to govern. But under a Marxist model, people aren't human beings. They are just another animal, and they can be used for whatever they want. And unfortunately, many in the Democrat Party see these people from third world countries as easy to manipulate, and they see them merely as a tool, which is exactly what the welfare system is. Because it's been known for a long time that if you put people on a system where the government pays them, they have a tendency never to vote for somebody who might take that away.
So it's just to earn votes, just to stack the deck.
Stack the deck and change how this country is run. So during the Biden administration, this was full of tents. Where we're parked at now would be a line of buses.
Yeah.
There were temporary buildings down here, and they were bringing these people in. They had bleachers, and they would have them here, and they would be providing them food and water, and they would be processing them and turning them over to NGOs by the thousands a day.
And up until a month ago, this was all still going on?
Up until the election. Once the election results came out, it all evaporated.
Yeah, they're out of business.
It evaporated.
And they made all their money, and they're like, all right, we're out of business now. Fold up the NGO, take your money, and run.
Yeah. Yep.
That is incredible.
They milked as much as they could. They packed up and left. Well, the goal of the task force is to defund cartel operations. Our overall goal is to make it to where it's no longer profitable for them to conduct their business in the state of Texas, so they can take themselves elsewhere to conduct their business. But in order to do that, we have to conduct our operations in a way that they're not used to, so that we reset the norm as we go through our operations. So traditionally, the cartels will conduct their operations in a very fluid manner. And what that causes us to do is to try to adjust what we're doing to keep up with what they're doing. Well, we decided that instead of doing that, we would constantly change our method of operation in order to make the cartels have to adapt to us. And so that's what we've been working on for the last couple of years. And it's been very successful. So between the 53 agencies in the task force, you know, we've partnered with Border Patrol, DPS, Parks and Wildlife. We've been partnered with the U.S. Coast Guard on occasions. But we work really close with Department of Homeland Security Investigations Division and work with Border Patrol. And we go out and we conduct these operations and we move around and we do different things and we try different methodologies, because we have to change our mindset as law enforcement. We have to change our methodology, because there is no Mayberry anymore. People think that we're sitting around with our feet on the desk waiting for a call to come in. That's a failed model of law enforcement. We have to adapt, and we have to adapt at a rate which is faster than that of the people that are coming here to commit crimes and victimize people of the United States. That way, we can outthink them, we can outmaneuver them, and we can prevent them from ever victimizing people in the first place. And that's what we're after.
Mm-hmm. And this has been a big, complete change in how things are being done. The OODA loop is a big OODA.
Yeah.
Trump was the big OODA.
We view the cartel as water. They follow the path of least resistance. So what we want to do is we want them to not quite know exactly where that resistance is going to come from. So when they come down the valley, it's too late. There we are, and there's nowhere to go. So we're constantly changing how we conduct investigations, how we conduct interdiction, how we conduct operations, when we conduct operations, who's involved in them. We evolve constantly in order to stay ahead of that. And it's extremely difficult, and it's very intensive to get it done. But, you know, the governor gave us a mandate to safeguard the state of Texas. And then he gave us the funding we needed to conduct the operations to make it happen. So the least we can do is go out and do everything within our power to shut the cartels down. And not just the cartels, but their contractors, their subcontractors, their affiliates that launder their money and move their product. The goal is to get it all shut down to a point to where the cartel says, you know, we no longer generate enough revenue to operate there. We'll go somewhere else. And we've seen that firsthand.
So is this currently are they building more, staging for more fence right here?
Yeah.
Or are they taking down old, like what are they doing?
What they're doing is they're reinforcing the temporary barrier that's up that is there in place of the border wall. And this is additional material that has been brought in recently to
fortify the
exactly
wall.
To fortify
and funnel
the barrier that's up. The state of Texas took on completing the wall, and the governor has been pushing that the entire time that the Biden administration has been in charge.
Right.
And now that the Trump administration is in, there's discussions on how to move forward and who's going to do what. And I know that the president and his team are on board to assist the state of Texas and actually take over much of the construction. Yeah, you're never going to get it done in a very short period of time. There's over 1,200 miles of border, running across here, and so there's just no way to get it done in a quick manner.
In one administration can't finish. How many of that 1,200 is no wall?
Shit if I know.
Yeah. All right. I don't know if there was like a stat on that.
There might be somewhere, but I don't know. But when you get out to places like far west Texas, there are places where building a wall isn't the most feasible thing. So until you get around to getting that done, you have to utilize technology to maximize your capacity to monitor that.
And we heard, general public heard that Biden was selling parts of the border wall?
That's correct. They were shipping it out to California and selling it. And there for a while, the state of Texas, they did that throughout their entire time, not just in the end.
He was taking actual wall that was...
It was material that was stacked, because we were paying, from what I understand, we were paying about $6 million a week not to build the wall, because the contractors had contracts, so they were going to get paid whether the wall went up or not, and the material was stacked up. And so what the Biden administration was doing was taking that material that hadn't been put in place and was stacked up on construction sites, moving it off and having it auctioned off on websites. So very early on, the state of Texas began quietly buying that material and then putting the wall up themselves. You know, the governor was not going to stand by and just, watch all that material disappear. So the state was buying that material at a discounted rate from the auction brokers and then utilizing that material to build the wall here in Texas.
So he could have just given it to Texas and said, you guys use this, but he wouldn't. He made them buy it.
Well, that would have defeated what he wanted to do.
Yeah, sure. So what's the vibe like down here now among all of the law enforcement and agencies? It's sigh of relief, walking around like a little bit more spring in their step, feeling like they can do their job again, feeling like they're appreciated again. I don't know.
Yeah, you have a different mentality now, a different atmosphere as a result of Trump coming into office. So the federal agencies which have been mistreated by the Biden administration are now receiving the full support of the Trump administration. Trump is replacing the people that were, using these federal agencies for their own benefit or for their own purposes. And now they've put people in place who actually care about the men and women under their command and are actually allowing them to conduct the job that they were hired to do.
They say we get rid of all of the illegals and the immigrants, the economy is going to suffer. Who's going to pick the produce? Who's going to work in the hotels? Who's going to do all the jobs that Americans don't want to do? The economy is going to suffer when we send them all home. Is that a problem from companies not wanting to pay a fair wage? Is that going to cause inflation? What do you think?
Sure, there's going to be impacts. There's going to be short-term impacts that come about as a result of the deportation of millions of people. But it's something that needs to be done. You can either continue to endure this issue and eventually watch your country fail, or you can fix it and handle the short-term issues that come along with fixing it.
Like rip the Band-Aid off fast.
That's exactly right. You have to take action, because if we don't change our course, then our nation is not going to survive. Because this is, when people talk about these millions of people here, the thing that they need to understand is it's not just the illegal aliens that are in the country. It's the cartel, it's their contractors, it's their subcontractors, it's their affiliate organizations. And they're all here, and they all have to be gotten rid of. Hey, real quick, you might want to turn your camera and get your gunboat.
All right. Would that have even been going on a month ago, or is this pretty standard?
They've been coming down. The state of Texas has been conducting operations on the river for quite some time. And so those boats have been down here the entire time that the Biden administration has been here, trying to protect the border of Texas as best they can.
Yeah. On a regular day before, how many bad guys do you think they'd be picking up on that boat?
Probably not a whole lot on the boat. The boat became more of a deterrence than anything else.
Okay.
The boat being on the river meant that the cartel couldn't move people across the water. And I have video from inside Mexico that we have taken off of people's phones that we've caught. And they lay in the brush and they wait for the boats to leave.
Right. Yeah.
Not just the DPS boats, but the Border Patrol boats and the Parks and Wildlife boats. And so it was more of a deterrence than anything else.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to see anything down there anymore, but at one point in time, all this was fenced off, and they had people in here by the thousands.
Like in tents and with toilets and just staging and processing and all that.
Yeah.
It must have been sad for you to see these women and children that were basically being taken advantage of by the Mexican government and treated how they were treated. I don't know. Where am I going with this? You know what I'm trying to say? Did that pull on your heartstrings when you'd see the suffering from all this?
Yeah, one of the cases that we had that kind of drove the victimization of these people home was one of the deputies on a weekend. He stopped a car, had a female from Dallas, and she was smuggling 3 females from Mexico. He realized that pretty quickly. He took them all to the Goliad County Jail, and when we started interviewing them, the girls thought they were going to be reunited with their family members who are already illegally here in the state of Texas. But what we found out was that their real destination was they were being taken to Chinatown in Houston. They were going to be put into forced prostitution. And how we discovered that was when we took the smuggler into the jail and we made her strip her clothes off to put on the jail clothes. She had 3 fictitious Social Security cards, one for each of the girls, in her panties. And so when she took her panties off, the cards fell on the floor. And that was how we started looking into that more and found out that those girls were actually being trafficked for
Girls, how old?
I say girls. They were in their late teens, early 20s.
Okay. And who was going to get the money from the cartel was going to get the money from the prostitution that they were going to send the money back to Mexico. How? Like cash, wire, whatever?
It goes back various ways, just like you saw on that chart.
Yeah.
They have different ways. They launder some of it through businesses. They send some of it cash. It just depends on what they're doing and how much money it is. Some of it they put on magnetic cards and they have those cards shipped back to Mexico. Some of it is wire transferred. What a lot of people don't realize is that 10% of the GDP of Mexico comes from money that is illegally transferred from the United States to Mexico without taxes ever being paid on that money.
10% of Mexico's economy is
based off of money illegally wire transferred from the U.S. to Mexico. That's money that was earned here, no taxes were paid on it, and so that money evaporates across the border through a wire transfer. I think one of the biggest things that we face is when people talk about the border crisis, we only think about the border, but we don't think about the impacts across the entire United States. One of the things that a lot of people don't take into consideration is the fact that the cartels have cemented their capabilities across the United States of America. You have to look at them like a corporation. The drugs don't go from Mexico to your local drug dealer for you to buy. There's an entire network within the United States. And so sealing the border is one thing, and Border Patrol is doing a great job of that. But in order to salvage the United States of America, we're going to have to get the cartels, their contractors and their subcontractors out of the U.S. We're going to have to prosecute them. We're going to have to defund them. And so the border is the easy part of the equation. And so just because President Trump won doesn't mean that we can all slap ourselves on the back and declare victory. Now the work begins, and we have to move forward, and we have to rid ourselves of the scourge of the cartels that are in every community across the United States.
The battle has just begun. Is that what you're kind of saying?
That's it.
What's the hardest battle? So what's the hardest part of that then? What's the next hard? Yeah.
I think the part's going to be getting people to understand and mobilizing law enforcement and getting them to change their mindset and their methodology and going after the cartels and their affiliates inside the United States. Because not only is the cartel operating in the U.S., they're also working hand in hand with many of the enemies of the United States, whether that be other nation states like China or other states like North Korea, to work against us inside of the U.S., but also other organized crime. Any of the traditional prison gangs that we all think of, Mexican Mafia, Texas Syndicate, Aryan Brotherhood, Hell's Angels, those people are nothing but contractors to the cartels now. The cartels control those organizations through their contractor status. We have to change our mindset as law enforcement. The public needs to grasp that. And we need to go after and dismantle those organizations in the United States, because if we don't do it right, then we're going to be fighting this fight for a very long time. And like I said, thank God for President Trump and the men and women of Border Patrol who have made it extremely difficult for the cartel to get their people across this river and make money off the backs of the slave trade. And to all the other people that are working behind the scenes to make sure that America is great again. So we're going to give them all the support we can. We're going to do everything we can possibly do in law enforcement to provide President Trump and his people with the ability to succeed on behalf of the American people.
And cut.